Good morning and welcome to It's How You'll Be Remembered. I am Julie Jones, your host and the Chief Encouragement Officer right here at Today's Professionals. And with me today is a faith-based entrepreneur and future media mogul, Tanya Galloway here. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Julie. It is great to be here. It's a privilege.
Well, thank you so much. And I have to say, we met networking.
Yes.
We
Yes.
were connected. I think you heard me on
Yes.
another event, a virtual event, reached out to me, said, hey, I didn't know you were in Dallas. And so we jumped on a call and we realized that we have so much in common. And I love your story and your heart to serve. So take a moment right now and share with us a little bit about your story, how you came to be in ministry and in particular faith-based media.
Okay, great. Well, wonderful question. And my story started, I guess, like many. As a little kid, I dreamed of growing up and making movies. I wanted to make movies that made people feel better. I
Yeah.
wanted to create movies that made a difference. And I took acting and singing and did all of that in high school and college, and then entered the industry. And it wasn't quite a match for my value system at that time. There just really wasn't the faith-based industry that we see emerging today. And
Right.
so I left that and went into a full-time ministry. And that's where I found just my heart for people in pain. Having experienced some pain and struggles in my own life, I had a real desire to discover what would make a difference for people. What were tools and things that could help shift things and increase cognitive stimulation, reduce pain and suffering, improve mobility and strength and things like that. So I spent the next 40 years really diving into that, working with people with a lot of different special needs, whether it was physical special needs, neurodiversity, different challenges in life, mental stability and resiliency, and just my passion to discover alternative and non-pharmaceutical ways to shift things became something that was a passion. And I started teaching on that. And that became part of my life, whether I was working with the elderly, whether I was working with teenagers in youth ministry, whatever age level I was at. The one universal thing is people are in pain. Depression and anxiety is the number one killer of our kids, 25 and under. And I wanted to have an impact in that. And that's what led me through a long series of prayer and fasting. God told me to unpack the dream of media and to start embedding healing modalities into media in a way to reach people, because I had already tried, with members of my own family and friends, to drag them to seminars or to give them books or to teach modalities that would help make a difference. But what I found was there was a consistency. A lot of times people don't want to do that. But
They don't want to go. Yeah.
Right.
They don't want to go. Yeah.
Right. People want things to shift.
Yeah.
But what they will do is they'll play a video game. They'll immerse themselves in binge watching. They'll do things that are fun. They'll listen to music. And then through the prayer and fasting, that's when God said, take the healing to where people are.
Right.
And that's
the people.
That was the birth and the genesis of Elivian Media.
Yes. Good morning, Debbie. We are so glad that you are here with us. Thank you for joining us. And if you are watching us live, be sure and say hello. Tanya and I want to say hello to you. And if you have a thought on anything that we're talking about, be sure and share it in the comments as well. And, I want to talk a little bit about Elivian Media, because as we were doing our show prep for this, You explained to me how you came up with the name. Please break that down for us. I think this is so interesting.
Yeah. Well, breaking it down to the roots of the words, El meaning God, live meaning life, and Vien to be a part of or renewal. And so Elivian media literally means life renewed in God. And so that's what I felt the calling
Yes.
was to create these media resources that were going to shift things for people. But the healing, true healing, comes body, soul, and spirit, because those of us in the kingdom know that the true essence of everything that we are is in our spirit. And if we can reach people at a spiritual level, because there are tons of medical things that we can do,
Yeah.
physical things that we can do, and people are used to now emotional resources.
Hmm.
But if we can combine that with the spiritual element, then we're actually approaching healing holistically. And if we can make that fun and engaging, we've actually got an audience that will participate in their own healing, as opposed to feeling like you're forced to go to therapy or to your doctor. And people aren't really happy about doing those things, but they love entertainment, they love media. And
Yeah.
so, if we can combine that and that can be embedded in the resources, it makes learning and changing and shifting fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have found, as an educator, I found that when, children play, if you go back to the very basics, in the very beginning, children learn through play, and we all learn through tactile and through experiences. And we don't learn by going to one seminar or one conference and just come out and we're just transformed. That may be the beginning of transformation, but what really true transformation is when you begin to practice what you've learned. And so a little bit of something every day, and this is why we say when you're creating habits and you're changing your life, you're doing things differently, doing things consistently, even a little bit a day, makes a huge difference over time.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think is unique to media, especially things like video games, people love video games. People love certain types of media and movies. I'm thinking of, like, my kids grew up with my husband taking us all to Comic Cons. And
Mhm.
you've got things that people really get obsessive over. And it's not even just superhero
Yeah, right.
modalities. You're
Yeah.
looking at Pride and Prejudice, which I was watching a form of that last night and thinking how fun that is. We love to get lost in the otherworldness
Story.
of the narrative. And that's one thing
Mhm.
that's really powerful. They've done scientific studies. When our brain, the prefrontal cortex, enters the narrative, it literally opens our brain to shifting. The neuroplasticity is there. We release oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine, and we release these hormones. Now, we've also seen that media can be used for the complete opposite effect.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
those of us who saw Jaws and had a lifelong fear of going to the ocean know how
Well,
powerful media can be. But
yeah.
just in the same vein, getting lost in a narrative where there's healing and positivity and
Mhm.
triumph over adversity. Now, those of us who saw Rudy, we
Ah,
learned that it wasn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It was
yeah.
about never giving up.
Yeah.
And that ability to overcome adversity, even small victories, make a
Mhm.
huge difference in our life. And that's the
100%.
power that media has in our life. And it's really
Mhm.
extraordinary. And how do we reach people? Well, we take the healing where they're at and we make it engaging, and we make it something where they can apply it to their life, because people, like, look at Tolkien. People have learned Elfish, which isn't even a language, you know,
Mhm.
but they are so immersed in the narrative of the
Mm-hmm.
challenge, of the epic adventure. And I think deep within us, all of us, the hero's journey lies.
Yeah.
I think we all connect to the fact that life is full of challenges, that life
Mm-hmm.
can be hard. But what is really important is staying the course, overcoming, building community around that. And somehow today, I think we've really lost the power of the
Mm-hmm.
epic journey. But life is such that we are all called to our own epic
Mm-hmm.
journey. And if
Right.
we can help people realize that, and make it immersive and help everyone realize you are the hero of your own narrative, and life will be full of adversity, and you will conquer and overcome, and we can do
Yeah.
that with the spiritual power through God.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we were talking about is the resilience, because you
Yes.
mentioned the stories that have the positive impact. And so we
Yes.
need more of that. I think, you mentioned Rudy, that was huge. I also loved, Remember the Titans, where somebody
Yes.
comes in and really builds up the people that are on the team and forms them
Yes.
as a bond, and then they come back and they became giants, and because they all pulled together. And I think that goes back to Zig Ziglar's quote, when you start to build people, then you build companies, right? You
Yes.
build organizations, you build teams, but you have to start with building the interperson. And that is what I believe all of the faith-based media is doing right now. We're looking at, I'm trying to get this other, oh, you know what? I didn't have that up. We're trying to look at like Angel Studios right now
Yes.
are coming in with positive messages, and they're hiring people who have quality characteristics, and they're getting messages out there that there is another way, there is a light out there, and that when you bring goodness and kindness, and when you bring joy and happiness to the world, you do start to reprogram your brain, so that you start to see the release of the positive hormones, so that
Yes.
our body is not in fight or flight anymore. We
Right.
are in joy. And when you are in a place of peace and joy, then when things happen to you that are not, positive, the resilience is there, and you say you have hope that things will get better, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as we're going through the obstacles and the challenges, it is that ability to bring purpose. And I think a relationship with God trumps any other, experience
Mhm.
that we have in the ability to overcome adversity and to put purpose to our challenges.
Purpose.
And one of the things um, that was true for me, because I have just come out of a season of
Mhm.
great loss and challenge. Within a 3-year time period, I lost my mother and my father, 3 aunts, my youngest sister, and then last year my husband. And
Mhm.
after my husband passed away, then our truck was stolen. Every major appliance in our house broke, including the AC unit. And I'll tell you, there was a time where I was ready to just give up. But one of the things that going through loss, especially end of life loss, really
Mhm.
makes you take a look at is just like with this podcast, what is the legacy I want to leave behind? And one of
Mhm.
the things that was a real moment for me was really sitting at the feet of Jesus Christ. And it was media, it was The Chosen that really helped me
Wow.
stay the course. I could relate to that, giving it all up for Jesus Christ. And if I'm going to be here living full out, all gifts, talents, and abilities, nothing unpacked, and
Mhm.
the writings of C.S. Lewis, made
Yes.
such a powerful difference for me as I was coming into this transition time, and then praying and fasting and asking God, how can
Yeah.
I help people? Because we had so many obstacles within our family, those struggling from anxiety and depression at a crippling level. And I
Mhm.
was praying, God, how can I have an impact? What do you want me to do? If I'm here, I want to be completely used up totally use everything that I've got. Just tell me what you want me to do. And that's when he said, take the healing to them, create the video games, because I thought I was going to be writing books and doing interactive seminars.
Yeah, of
And,
course.
and yeah, I mean, because that was just kind of the standard way that,
That's
I
right.
did a lot of that working behind the scenes in ministry for other people. And God was saying, combine it. He said, unpack your
Mm-hmm.
dream of making media and embed the healing modalities and make it all to my glory. Because I was like, God, I'm old and I'm tired. And he said, well,
Not yet.
why do you think I told you to start going to the gym? Because audibly in November, he said, get up, go to the gym. This is your
Get
new
up.
way of life. And he
Yes.
was just telling me it was time to take care of myself so
Yes.
that I could take care of others.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Fahad Jabswala is with us. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you. He is across the ocean over in Pakistan. Gosh, it must be late there. So glad that you are joining us. Thanks so much for popping
Yes. Thank you
in.
so much.
And so yes, and I want to say too that you mentioned something I want to go back to, because you said I thought that I would be doing this. And it's really funny because whenever we have a vision or a dream in our heart, it is placed there for a reason, because we all are here for a purpose. We're all
Right.
given gifts, and we're here for a purpose. But when you have something that's placed on your heart and you don't see the way, you don't see it all, you just know that I want this, like down the
Yeah.
road in the future. And so when you have that and you think, I don't know how to get there, you get there one step at a time. And Zig Ziglar really said it best. You have to be the person you need to be before you can do the things that you need to do, so that you can have that life, that vision that you have in the future. And so as you're talking, I am hearing be, do, have. So be means you need to
Yes.
get up and go to the gym. You have to
Yes.
become the CEO. You have to become that person right now, even though you're not there yet. You have to start now to
Right.
live that life, so that now you can start doing the things and opening up your mind to, oh, no, we're not going to do books. We're going to do
Yeah.
games and media. And you're like, if you had started this 2 years ago, you'd have been like, I don't even want that. But
Right.
when you start putting these actions in place and you start to take steps toward being the person that you need to be, the do and the have do come into play. They just follow through. And I think you just
Absolutely.
outlined it beautifully.
Well, thank you. And yeah, Zig, personal friend of mine, absolutely loved him. I used to go to the Bible study that he had at his house. And one of the things that I loved that Zig would say was, if you want to achieve something in life, help other people
Yeah.
achieve what
That's his
they
most
want.
famous quote. Yes.
And
Yeah.
that was one of the things that I appreciated about Zig. And I think that's something that's very prevalent in faith-based media. It really is so much about helping others. It is
Yeah.
so servant-hearted. When I went to the content media conference, it was like I had walked in to my own people. It was like I felt at home, and I just absolutely knew this was where I belonged, that
Peace.
God had what he had packed away for a season, packing away the media. Had I pursued media full on in my 20s, I would not have dived into alternative healing and therapies and modalities, and I wouldn't have studied neuroscience, and I wouldn't have taught things that can shift your life and reduce pain and create emotional resilience. Had I not been through the suffering myself, after when we lost our youngest son, one of the things that God called me to was to be a family counselor at a funeral home. And I was not the person who talked about death. Didn't want to go there. It was when I was pregnant with my fifth child, my dad showed up on my doorstep with an life insurance salesman and wills for my husband and I to sign, because I just wouldn't deal with it. but it was something I needed to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And so God put me in a position to minister to others, because the very first family I worked with was a family that had lost a child. And I've felt that through my life, any struggle that I have been through, God has given me the opportunity to use that pain and the journey to help others. And I think that's part of what's so powerful. If we'll realize, if we can step outside the tiny little box we'll put ourselves in, because I think that's where misery lies. It's when we're all centered on self, our healing really comes when we're looking beyond ourselves and we're getting our strength from above, so that we can be a conduit for God's healing and his love, his power, and his creativity. It's not about us. We don't have to be the generator of it. We just have to be a conduit for it.
That's right.
And if we are a conduit for God's love, love is always with us. If we are a conduit for his creativity, creativity is always with us, with his power. And we tend to feel so powerless in life when things happen. We tend to feel like we're all alone. Well, if we recognize we're never alone.
Right.
But the
That
power,
has been life-changing for
it
so many people.
is.
Yes.
It is.
And you know, you're talking something too about, I didn't want to work with families. I didn't want to talk about death. I didn't want to do these things.
Yeah.
And there is a part of the brain, because we've talked about the brain and the neuro-linguistic parts of the brain and how it works, because it is designed to protect you, right?
Yes.
And so you can get focused on what's comfortable, but there is a part of the brain called the mid-anterior cingulate cortex that grows only when we do things we don't want to do.
Absolutely.
So when we say in our comfort zone, there is science that says your brain stops growing. But when you are always challenging yourself to do something you don't want to do, I don't want to get up and go to the gym, but you do it anyway. You know, that is when your brain starts to grow, and it keeps you in a forward momentum because you're always challenging yourself. And so, and the key here is, once you get into a habit and you start to enjoy going to the gym, well, now you got to find another way to challenge yourself. You have to always keep saying, this is what I don't want to do, so I'm going to do it. So you run to the fear, you face your fear, you do it anyway. And that is when our brain keeps growing. And I believe that that has a lot to do with how long we live. You know, when people start to give up, you know, I saw it in my father right before he passed. He had a major open heart surgery, an emergency open heart surgery at 86. And so it was hard to recover at 86, and it was hard for him to get up and walk, and he didn't want to do it. And he, you know, he just, what he did is he just said, I just want to be in bed. I just want to rest. And that is when he started to decline, is when we couldn't get him up, when he didn't want to go to therapy, when he, you know, didn't do all that. That is when he declined, because essentially what he said was, I'm done. Yeah. I'm done. And so, and that's when we lost him, you know, because he didn't want to do the hard things anymore. And so I think what we're talking about here and what you are describing is, you know, even when you hear the voice, whether you hear the voice or it's an intuition or whatever it is that says, do this.
Right.
And you go, no, I don't think I want to. I don't want to do that. I'm afraid, or whatever. That's when everything starts to be comforted and you start to go backwards. You're not moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think that that's why media can be so powerful, because the narrative of engaging in the hero's journey is something that we start connecting to. When we see a hero, when we see the heroes of Lord of the Rings going on this quest, we become dissatisfied with a comfortable life that has no challenges. When we watch a film like Rudy, when we watch, and I was never an athlete. That was my sister. I've always considered myself a cerebral athlete. But I have always loved sports films because they're
Yeah,
just
me
the
too.
perfect analogy of life, that
Yeah.
resiliency, that overcoming. That's when it all comes down to the last moment, whether you win or not. We are all inspired by
Mhm.
someone who is willing to engage in the challenges of life. And when we've watched that kind of media, when we've played that kind of video game, when we've listened to that kind of music that touch, moves, and inspires us, it shifts us out of that, I just want everything to be easy and comfortable. And we start looking for ourselves. Where is my challenge? What can I take on that'll shift the needle so that I can make a difference? Who can I rescue? I truly believe that we all have an inner hero. I think God has created nobility within all of us. And
Mhm.
we all want to be a Martin Luther King Jr. We
Mhm.
all want to make a difference
Inspire.
and inspire change or be part of that change. You know,
Mhm.
we love war movies, not because we love war, but we are attracted to that sense of community that is built. We are attracted to that overcoming
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
exist in those environments.
Overcoming
And we want to
challenges.
be part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of us can engage in that because we are all given a hero's journey. We just have to see,
Yeah.
just because ours isn't as glitzy or doesn't have this big
Mhm.
label to it, what is the challenge that we face today?
Mhm.
And it is through, I'm also a speech and debate judge. And one of the things that I see as a common theme among a lot of my students is the fact that they want to make a difference. They want to use their gifts,
Mhm.
talents, and abilities to make a difference.
Right.
But there's a huge difference between seeing a problem and talking about it.
Yeah.
And when they will engage in the journey, I literally told this to a group of students recently. I said, what's going to have an impact, because I can tell you want to make a difference, but don't observe the problem and talk about it like you
Mhm.
need to do something about it. Share your journey of overcoming and
Mhm.
engaging in what you have observed. And that will make all the difference when you are sharing your vulnerability, when you're sharing
Mhm.
those obstacles and your pain. It inspires us, and we look for ourselves when we
Mhm.
see that in someone else,
Yep.
what we can do to make a difference.
Yeah. We
Look
all
to
want to envision
what our journey is.
ourselves. Yes, 100%. Cherie, you are joining us today. We're so glad you're here. Welcome. So glad you joined us. I know you probably have something to say here about stepping out in faith because you have overcome a lot in your life as well. And so, it is so good to talk about the stories that come out of great movies, and especially the stories that come out of the faith-based entertainment. You mentioned The Chosen. That has had a huge impact on this world because it brought the story of the disciples and Jesus to life. And we can, and while some of it is made up. I mean, for storyline purposes,
Yeah,
the stories, the stories of the miracles and all of that is still true. There's still
right.
movie making in it. But that has had such an impact on people because they couldn't really picture him. And to bring, my daughter said one time, when she was young and she first started reading the Bible, she was like, I'm going to read the Bible. And Jesus talks in parables, and so the reader when you're looking at only the written word, you only have you create the movie in your mind, you create the tonality,
Right.
and you create all of that in your mind. And so I remember her saying to me, was Jesus rude? Like, the people would ask him a question and he wouldn't
Yeah.
answer, and he'd answer in this like thing that nobody understands or whatever. And it was so funny because in The Chosen, they brought that to life and they added the tonality and the facial expressions and the body language
Yes.
and the way that it all made sense. It was like, oh, no, he wasn't rude. He was
Yeah.
saying this, and it brought it to life. And I think that has been the bridge. To me,
Absolutely.
is when you see it played out like that and you go, oh yeah, now I see how he said it. And now I know the inflection.
Yes.
Now I know the twinkle in his eye or whatever. And so that movie or that show has been just hugely impactful for people.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that made a huge difference, and Jonathan Rumi, absolutely, such an amazing
Yeah, he did a good job.
Jesus. And what shifted everything for me, especially going through that season of loss, was seeing a Jesus who wasn't just this powerful, holy,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
it
right.
was seeing
He was
a
a real guy.
Jesus. Right. He was so tired. I think one of the episodes that made a huge impact with me was, I think it's season 2, episode 3, when he is so tired at the end of the day, and the
Yes.
disciples have been fussing over the fire and
Yeah. I
fighting with
remember.
one another, and he has been ministering and healing all day. And when he goes to his tent, he is so exhausted
I know.
from ministering to people that he can't even take off his own sandals. And
That's
his
right.
mother goes to him.
Mom had to go help. Yes.
Oh my
And
goodness.
and the impact it had on them that
Yes.
they're like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe that's more important than what we're fussing about.
Right. Right.
The lesson there is so true.
Yes.
Cerise says, I wholeheartedly agree with Miss Tanya. Telling your story to solve a problem is an impactful way to bring about change. I
Absolutely.
had this conversation a while back about with somebody who had, was saying, bad things happen. It just happens, and it's not for a purpose. It's not just, it's just life. And I said, you can think of it like that. But the person who impacts change is the person who says, okay, this is what I went through. This is what I learned. This is how I became better. So not that this was
Yes.
intended to happen, not that God said I want all these bad things to happen, but it's how we handle it and the perspective and how we use it to make a difference in other people's lives that really makes the difference of those who really impact change and those who just go through life.
And I think finding purpose is what's sorely lacking. We've got a generation that is taught that they're just supposed to be entertained, and life is
Yeah.
supposed to be easy, and
Entertainment.
everything is supposed to be
Yeah.
instant. And
Yeah.
when we let young people know, because that is one thing I am very clear with my debate kids, if you want to impact the world, I promise you, life is hard. Life is challenging.
Oh, and
But
it's meant to be hard.
when you live a life
Yeah.
that is directed by purpose, when you discover the change and the difference that you want to make in the world, you may lay your head on your pillow at the end of the day completely exhausted. But when you know that you are fulfilling your purpose, I promise you a life worth living. I promise you a
Yeah.
fulfilling life. I can't promise you all the money in the world. I can't promise you fame and fortune, but I can promise you a life well lived when
Yep.
you engage in discovering what your
Mhm.
purpose is, and all of our pain.
Yeah.
We can shift it to purpose driven, and we can help someone else, but we've got to take the journey first.
That's right. We've got to take the step. The
Yes.
leap of faith, the growth of the brain, the mid anterior singular cortex. We got to do it.
Yes.
Bree is agreeing with you 100% here. Oh
Thank you
my
so
gosh,
much,
Tanya,
Bree.
this has been such an amazing conversation. It goes by so fast.
It does.
And we can talk forever, and we do.
Yes.
And so I am so grateful for your time today. And if you would like to connect with Tanya, Facebook is the best way to do that right now. Her website
Yes.
for Elivian Media is still up and still being created. And as you know, anybody who's created a website, it takes a minute to do that. But I am so grateful that you are here. You can also find Tanya on LinkedIn, right here on
Yes.
LinkedIn. And so, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your journey and your purpose about, creating media that is helpful, wholesome, and that actually works to heal those who are in need. And we are so grateful to you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for being here today. And if you would like to be a part of this, feel free to direct message me on Facebook is the best way to get a hold of me. And I look forward to, continuing on the journey. And I thank you so much, Julie. You are an inspiration to me, and you have been such a blessing to find people who share your heart for making a difference. It does. It makes all the difference in the world. And I see a group of people here joining us that y'all are out to make a difference in the world. So thank you for what you guys are doing to make the world better for the people in your life. And we can all do this together.
That's right. We just all have to let our lights shine.
Yes.
All right, Tanya, thank you so much. And we will see you next time on It's How You'll Be Remembered.